Hey, back with another video. This one's a bit longer than usual. We catch up with D1 Pro driver Blackie, talk about his D1 so far, check out the specs of his GT86, and ask him a few other various questions. I'll put it in chapters so you can just skip through to whatever you want to see. And cheers. Well, we're here today with Blackie and his LS powered GT86. He's currently third in the second. D1. Oh, second?
Second, mate.
Shit, that's my bad.
Yeah, it's still second. Only just though. Just in front of Tay. Tay's only like
Tay's
3
third,
points or so behind me, and then I think the top like 5 or 6 is within 20 to 30 points, so it's quite a tight field this year, which is quite good. Thing is well ahead, I think. He could sit out the next round and probably still win it. So unless something really goes wrong with him at Manfield and Bay Park, I think he's kind of still got that number one spot, unfortunately. But yeah, he's just been going so good this year and consistent. That's what you need is consistency. Consistency wins. So
you're usually pretty consistent.
Try to be, yeah.
In the pro sport, you're always pretty consistent.
Pro sport went real well. My last year in pro sport, I think I did 4 out of 5 podiums. So yeah, this year's been going real well for me. In the points anyway. Round one was kind of like a write-off. I qualified real well and I got into the top 8, but then we had motor issues, so I had to pull out of round 1. But I think after round 1, I think I was 6th or 7th in the points, so it wasn't too bad. And then coming into round 2, we borrowed Fanger's VF Commodore, and I think I went into that round with no pressure.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't expecting too much. Like, it was a new car, and I was like, if I do well, I do well, but I'm not like pushing myself. But yeah, really got to grips with the car being. It was completely different. It's like double the length, so
yeah.
It took a while to get used to it, and I think I only had half a dozen laps or so before we went into qualifying, and then qualifying didn't go too bad. We didn't get a buy into the top 16, I think, so I still had to go to the top 24. But throughout the day, I just got better and better in the car and gelled with it, really. And then we came up against Rome, an FD driver in the 24, and fortunately took him out, got through that one, which was pretty cool. As soon as you kind of win a battle, you kind of like get in the zone and you think you can like keep going, so it's real good. Like, it's got that first win under your belt, you know. So in the top 16, we came up against Alex in his S2000. He was number 1 qualifier, so I was like, oh god, like it's going to be a bit of a battle here. But no, he ended up doing real well in that one. He tapped the wall, and I think that pretty much gave me the win. And then top 8 went up against Troy Jenkins and ended up taking the win there. And at that point, you kind of feel like you're unstoppable and you can keep going. So yeah, and then top 4 we went up against Mitch Lana, and then that was another one where I was like, oh, he's been going so well all day and all weekend, and he was really gelling with that car. And again, the pressure wasn't on because I'd done so well and didn't expect to go that far anyway. So, but we ended up taking another win, which was pretty cool. And yeah, and then went into the final with Fanger. Fang was on the opposite side of the tree, and we were kind of like joking that it would be quite funny to meet in the final, having both of his cars, and it's never been done before, having two of your own car in the final. And he was stoked. Like he was watching me all day and getting better and better in the seat, and he knew I could do well in that car because it's such a good car and it's so well set up. So yeah, we met in the final, and I thought it'd be quite funny if I could beat him in his own car, but unfortunately he did take the win.
Yeah.
It was pretty close. I think he just had a bit better of a chase than me. His car's super quick. The Combi was actually really surprisingly fast as well for how big it is. It actually moved really well and really fast. It was a bit like lazy on the transitions, not being a little bit longer than what I'm used to, but it was actually a really fast car. And went into the final with Fanger and took it out. But that was my first pro podium, so it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Bit gutted not to do it in my own car, but still, nonetheless, a pretty surreal feeling. And that really bumped us up. I wasn't expecting to be up in second after that round, and then when I found that out, it was quite cool. Being second in the championship, pretty surreal feeling really. And then the pressure was really on after that, because if you're not that far up in the championship, you don't have too much pressure, but then the pressure was on for Taupo. And then Taupo, we got the car back. Chicken at Airfine Turbo, he rebuilt the motor like super quick and got it running for us, which was pretty cool. Coming into Taupo, we had a few issues with like melting leads. No practice all Saturday because of trying to figure out this issue of the leads, and we actually had blocked injectors as well. So I had to forfeit my first qualifying run, and then I had one run to actually qualify, and like pulled it out of the bag and got fourth. So that was pretty cool. So we got a bye from the top 24 into the straights into the 16, and came up against Adam Camplin in the top 16. Ended up winning that one, which was cool. In the top 8, we came up against Jace Brown. I led first, and I had a really solid lead. I ended up snapping my shifter off.
That's right.
The last bit of luckily it wasn't actually in the drift section. It was when I was like returning up the return road. It just like snapped off going into fourth. So I was like, shit, do I just like... Because with the Jerichos, there's like a little stub, so I could shift a little bit. But nah, I thought, I'll just take my 5. They ended up welding the shifter on, which was cool. Went back out, and I think I just overdrove. I overcommitted. I probably could have only done like an 80% run and still won, because Jace did an okay chase, but it was a few car lengths back. I'd done a real good lead, and I probably, if I just done like an 80% run, I probably would have had it, but I just like did like 120% run and just got smoked out, got choked up and put like a wheel off, and then in the last corner I like over rotated a little bit, and it just all turned to shit. So I ended up losing that one, but it was still a top 8 finish, so we still ended up with good points, and then the qualifying points was good for us as well, and we still ended up in second in the championship, but everyone's quite close, so Manfield's going to be really a real decider in the championship, because I'm going to have like a really good run. I think I'll have to bank a top 4 finish at Manfield to still keep up in that championship running, and then it'll come down to Bay Park. But Bay Park's my favourite track. I like the concrete rounds. I always do well there, and the kind of like slower, snappy, kind of twitchy tracks. I like the real close battles, and I love the concrete jungles, and like it's a surreal feeling really going into that round and being, do something minute wrong, and you're in that wall. So it's a real out of it feeling, heaps of adrenaline, and those are the rounds that I really like and really do well at. So I should have a good round at Bay Park. So the goal is to really, the taking out first is unachievable really. You never know what's gonna happen, but I think it's more so if I end up in that championship position, like second or third will be really good for me and the team and for the sponsors. So yeah, that's a rundown of the season so far, and it's been a bloody good year. Good year for the sponsors. I've had some really cool sponsors like Colab Digital and Gas Tech. They came on board as naming rights partners, and they shared the naming rights, and they're real good friends of mine as well. So it's cool to have them on board the year that I'm doing really well, and just got to keep on pushing.
Yeah. This is your third year in pro, eh?
This is my fourth year in pro, actually. No. Yeah. My first year was a bit of a write-off. We had so many issues like engine failures and gearbox failures and clutches and axles, and like every round something happened, and so that was like a really shit entry into pro. It was just like no good. Like it was a brand new car, and I was thinking I was going to do a little bit better than what I did because I had the car, and we thought we had a real good reliable car, and we didn't. We had everything go wrong. And the second year was a lot better. I think the second year I ended up in like 12th or something like that, and then last year I was in the top 10. So every year we are progressing.
Yeah.
And then this year has just gotten a lot better, and I think I'm gelling with the car a lot better, and we've got our gears like really good, and it's real reliable, and so far it's been really reliable, and yeah, everything's just been going real well.
So you did pro sport in a pretty, I don't know if you call it basic level, R32.
Pretty much, yeah.
But it was pretty basic.
It was just a RB25 plus T on ethanol, made good power, but we just had factory big box, factory R200, diff, 5x1 axles. Like we had like GT86 knuckles, but we still had like factory lower arms. Like it wasn't anything special.
Yeah.
But it and being a big car too. But we ended up doing really well in the last season of pro sport, which boosted us into wanting to do pro.
So what was your reasoning for going to the GT86?
I think the world's kind of changed a little bit with what chassis you want to use and stuff. I think like the typical Nissans and stuff like that are getting so expensive these days. Jumping into a chassis like this that's so much newer, but it's actually a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
And parts are now being more readily available. Off the shelf parts for these, and just a newer car, we can kind of dial a lot more grip into the chassis and the development of like the suspension and the car as well. But even though like when I got the car, it was quite fresh to the drifting scene, but now like pretty much a lot of people are running these, and then so this is kind of like getting a little bit older as well now. So I think possibly in the next like few years I'd like to kind of like upgrade, maybe like the newer GR version of this, or possibly like a new Supra or something, but we'll see. This is definitely capable of winning a championship, and for a few more years now, but with what's happening now, and like the talent's getting a lot better, and the chassis, a lot more development in the chassis and everything, we might need to look at kind of going to something else, but for now it's fine. Definitely wouldn't go back to like a Sylvia or anything like that, just because the chassis is so expensive these days. You just can't find one for cheap enough, and it'd be quite sad if you were to like write one off, or
So most people would go V8, or they'd go
Yeah, so
V8
it
for
wasn't-
reliability. Did you?
Yeah, it wasn't actually my intentions to go V8. It just came with the chassis. So when I bought this car, it had like the roll cage and stuff was done, like the chassis was in there, and it had like the lock kit and stuff. It was about 70% done. So I finished it off, and it came with the V8. So it was easy for me to kind of go that direction. It's still just an NA V8, but it's from going from like a turbo application to a V8. Like the V8s are definitely a lot better for drifting. It's not. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, and it can be kind of like a cheat code because they are so good for drifting and so easy. There's still like driver skill involved and whatnot, but V8s are very, very easy to drift. Like the torque is just there, and there's no like clutch kicking or modulation or anything. It's just instant power's there. Even though I'm still like the lowest power in the field, I can kind of get away with it because the torque's there and the chassis is quite light, and but yeah.
So what is the setup under the bonnet?
Yeah, so it's a cast aluminium L98, which is a 6.2 litre factory with LS3 heads, but it's got a Eagle stroker crank with Eagle rods, JE piston, so the stroker crank makes it a 6.8 litre.
Oh, yeah.
4-inch stroke, so it's got a big stroke. Yeah, so I think it's a 427 cubic inch LSV8. It's got factory cast heads, which have been like highly modified. So the main difference from last year to this year is that we've gone to a solid roller cam from a hydraulic roller cam, so we can kind of rev it a bit more if we want to. It's still only wet sump, so we can't push it too much. But I spent the money in the right places to kind of future-proof it for years to come. If I want to boost it or dry sump it, we can actually rev it to the moon, and it's got the gear in it to kind of handle the power. So the heads, the LS3 heads, but they've been ported, and they've got Ferrier tie valves, pack double valve springs. Big Jessel rockers in this, and so they're adjustable rockers. So we've gone to solid lifters, so you've got to like adjust the lash sometimes, or you've got to check the lash. It shouldn't really change, but you've got to always check the lash going from hydraulic lifters to solid lifters. Got like massive 7/16 push rods in this, Manton push rods. So yeah, the heads are pretty trick for still being like a stock head, and then the bottom ends, JE pistons, Eagle rods, Eagle crank, with a Butler oil pump on it, and it's all like still quite simple. There's nothing too out there, but it makes good grunt. And it's got the RHP individual throttle body, so that's like the one unique thing to this motor is the individual throttle bodies.
And so how much grunt is it making?
At the moment it's making 630 to the rear wheel, 630 horsepower, which is about 475 kilowatts. So for an NA motor, that's a lot of power with no nitrous, no boost, nothing, just all motor. And it revs to like 7.2. We are running out of like air, so the throttle bodies are only like 52 mil ITB, so we just can't get enough air into the motor to make more power. So the goal probably next year is to change the intake to like a 4-barrel like butterfly kind of tunnel ram into like a 4-barrel, looks like a carby, but it's still fuel injection, and that will allow us to get more air into the cylinders and then and make more power. I think the more we rev it with that setup, the more power it will make, but at the moment it gets to a certain point, certain revs, and it just plateaus off. It doesn't make any more. So even though we could rev it more, there's no point because it doesn't make any more power.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's still a lot of power for an NA motor. It's a big motor, like 6.8 litres is a big motor. But yeah, after Daryl chucking an airflow and turbo, he rebuilt it, and it's been phenomenal. At Taupo, it was super cool. Yeah.
So it was mounting the leads.
Yeah, so
you got them coated.
Having a few issues with mounting leads just because these headers done by Triple T Engineering are pretty out the gate, and as you can see, the header just follows the lead up. So we were melting the lead kind of like around here. So we ended up sending those off to HPC coaters, high performance coaters, I think, in Auckland, and they put a coating. They coat it the inside and the outside, and they reckon that it can the temperature can get 30% lower than max operating temperature. So it should help. And then we got the boots on there as well. So hopefully that kind of that ends our melting lead issue, because that's pretty much all the issues that we're having is just melting leads. And we've got spares and stuff, and luckily enough that it melts a lead like when we're practicing or whatever, but I'd hate for one to kind of melt in a battle situation.
Have you had a chance to start up yet or no? See, have you noticeable heat difference?
It's not like you can grab the header and not hurt or anything, but I think it's not like super noticeable, but it will definitely be helping. Yeah, like it definitely
once
will
you get it under the
definitely
extreme conditions.
Yeah, it'll definitely be doing something.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, apart from that, like just the typical Phoenix radiator, coupled fans, twin overflows. Big filter that is a bit annoying because
it's a big filter.
Can't really see past it, so I don't have too much visibility. But I've kind of just like gotten used to it and kind of like drive around it. But when I drove Fanger's Commi, I noticed it a lot. Like I had so much more visual, like I was going to see so much more. And with this, it looks cool and it's more of like a wow factor, but it does kind of limit where I can see. But it's for now that's how it is. And
And what gearbox is behind this?
It's a WC4 Jericho, so it's the latest revision Jericho with the top shift linkages and stuff, and that's just been an awesome gearbox. Haven't had any issues with that, and it's got a twin plate Mantic clutch behind it.
Winters in the back, or you still?
Nah, so this car still doesn't have a Winters. It's still got the what it does have though is it's the factory 8.6 casing, and then Casper have figured out that they can put a 9-inch Hilux crown and pinion inside the diff. So it's been like can't break one. I've had this in there for like 5 years now, and I can't break it. So it's pretty indestructible, and it's a cheaper option than going Winters. I don't have like the beauty of like changing ratios and stuff, but with the V8 you literally just put it in a gear and go. You're not having to change gears all the time. And we do have, so there's a 3.7 in there at the moment. We do have a 3.5 as well, so if we wanted to we could chuck that in for a bit more extra wheel speed. But I have never broken one, haven't had any issues with anything like that, and so we haven't really needed to go Winters. I think
to break the bank with a Winters.
Like it would be cool to go Winters, and having like that little bit extra tunability with ratios and getting the wheel speed right and stuff. But at the moment, I haven't had any issues with it, so there's no point in changing it.
Yeah.
And then it's just got adapter spacers that go to GDR axle. So I run just the Hilux diff with GDR axles, and
without all the clutch kicking and all the rest of it, it's not as much strain on everything.
Apart from like the torque loading on the motor, you're not harsh on the driveline. You're not bloody clutch kicking it like 10 times around a corner or modulating it or whatever. So it's really like you're really easy on the gear. So yeah, even so we haven't really had any issues with like axles, diff, kind of like clutch and driveline related, because we can be a little bit more easier on the gear.
Yeah. And then all Wisefab suspension.
Full front and rear Wisefab. I think it's still got like the V1 version. There's like a V2 version now that you can convert it to a front rack, like a BMW, but this is still like a 86s are weird. They're kind of like a mid rack. They're quite a lot lower and they're more of a mid than an S chassis. But they do a kit that converts it to like a front rack. So with the geometry of a front rack, it's so much better than you're quite limited with a rear rack to how much angle you can use before it gets bound up, before you like over center the rack. But I've got this thing set up so well now that I wouldn't change it. It might be a bit nicer going to like the version 2 with the front rack, but how this thing's set up now and how it drives, I wouldn't change it. So it's and then full catalogue in the back as well. Every single arm is Wisefab, and the same in the front. Everything is Wisefab, and apart from that, it's still got like factory brakes and stuff. It's one thing that I don't like dive into too much with my cars, is like brakes, like upgrading to like massive brakes and whatever. It's still got the factory brakes in it, and they do the job. So I'm not really like wanting to stop anyway, so stop fast, But just typical like dual calipers and stuff in the back. For the handbrake. The wiring is done by PWS, so it's got a full wiring with a Link ECU Extreme.
AccuSump to keep it.
AccuSump, just like a failsafe really. Just a precautional measure if you go into a corner and it's got a lot of G-forces and kind of comes away from that pickup, and then that will kind of sense that it is a little bit low and force oil into the motor to kind of like preventative kind of measure there. But this thing is awesome with like heat management and oil management after it's been rebuilt as well. Like this thing never gets hot. It never drops oil pressure to a point where you're worried anyway. And it's just been awesome ever since Chicken built it. So
Okay, so we've got a few questions that I think I asked Simon a few of them and a few others. How did you get into cars? What brought you into the world of cars and drifting?
How did I get into cars? Okay, so when I was at school, I was a little Honda boy. So first,
is that how you knew Simon?
Kind of. I just got out of Hondas, kind of like when we met, and he had his Integra. But before that, when I was at school, I had like the Honda Integra, like Type R, and a few of my mates had them as well, and Civics and stuff, and we'd just always be boosting around town and whatnot, going up like Welcome Bay back roads and racing along there. And then I sold that and got my first R32 four-door Skyline. It was a road car, and then I kind of like started meeting a few more people that were into like the drifting scene or like the skids and stuff, and ended up like going out and Friday nights, Saturday nights, and going doing skid missions and the typical stuff you do when you're young, and that kind of like kicked off kind of like trying to get into drifting. And then I had my road car. I think I had it on the road for a couple of years doing like skids and whatever and trying to drift, and then ended up turning it into a drift car. So I took it off the road and started going to track days and stuff. Started out at like the Hori Dori days, where like that's kind of like the first. They were kind of like the first company that was started to do like drifting days and stuff, and they started out at the back of Merrimeri, and they were doing like drifting schools and stuff. So you like start doing figure eights, and then once you got a little bit better, you start doing like snakies and stuff down the drag strip. and that's pretty much where it all kicked off, was like starting out doing Horidori days in my Skyline. And then I think I ended up doing 4 to 5 years of just going to track days and like zero class days and Mitsuris and whatever, and then thought throughout the years I would always be going to D1NZ. Like me and my old man would always go to like all the D1NZ days and just watch and just think like, shit, like maybe one day I could do this. And it was pretty cool. And then I ended up just fully committing to one season in pro sport, and it was in the same Skyline that was my road car. So we like developed it a little bit. It wasn't anything much. It was just a plus T25 det with a small box and lock diff and a bit of an angle kit and roll cage, and got a few sponsors on board that I found with doing like practice days and stuff, and then it's kind of like spiraled into my D1 journey, and 6 years, I think, 6 or 7 years deep into D1 now. And then over the years developed relationships with partners, and every year I developed like a new relationship with a new sponsor or partner, and it's been one hell of a journey.
So with the Horidori days, they were over 10 years ago now, weren't they?
I would say, I would say I was doing the Horidori days when I was probably 18 or 19. So that's over 10 years ago now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And why this car and engine? Was it purely already set up, good deal sort of? Yeah,
like it was a good deal when I saw it, and it was a good price, and I probably couldn't have built it for what I brought it for with the gear that it had in it.
Yeah.
It was kind of almost there, 75% there, and I just had to finish it off. So it was a good deal, and I knew that it was a good platform. Before I brought it, Troy and Ben had 86s, 86s, and they were doing quite well, and I knew that there was a lot of support with these chassis with bolt-on parts, so it was good to go down that road. There were a few other options that I could have gone down with S chassis and stuff like that, but I wanted to do something a bit different as well. I didn't want to do like the generic S15 that everyone was doing. I wanted to do something that was a bit different, and I think it was a good choice.
Yeah. What's your favourite thing about this car?
The favourite thing...
Is there anything that like...
There's a few favourite things, like definitely the motor and the engine platform. But with my cars, I like to make them like look good as well, and I'm always like doing little things to the chassis or to like the visual aspect of the car to make it look cool. I wouldn't say there was just one thing that I like about the car, but it's such a good... I have developed it over a long time to make it what it is now, but it's such a good working car. It doesn't do anything weird or funny, and that just comes from years of development in the seat and a lot of time in the seat and changing it and making it what it is. So I wouldn't say I've got one thing about it. I just like the whole car in general.
Yeah. Fair enough. And what advice would you give to people wanting to get into cars these days, to help them either in like street scene or more motorsport drift scene?
Advice: have a good job. Because it does cost a lot.
Work hard at school.
Work hard, and because it's not, like, let's be honest, it's not cheap, and I couldn't be doing it without sponsorship either. So even though I work for myself and I've got a good job, I still probably could not be doing it without sponsorship. And one of the biggest things probably with people that are wanting to get into it is try and form relationships with companies, because that's a big thing, that you need help to even do it at like a grassroots level. You still you're going to need like help from a tire shop, or try and get tires cheap, or help with some parts for the car and stuff, and that all contributes to it, and having help from partners and sponsors is real good. So yeah, trying to pay for it is one thing. Trying to go from a grassroots to a competition type level is a lot different, and it takes a lot of money and a lot of support from partners and stuff. But getting into, if you're just wanting to get into drifting and whatnot, and go to a few track days and stuff, you don't need all the good gear, and that's one thing that I have noticed, that quite a few people will want all the good gear just to go to a practice day, but you don't. You just, all you need is a bloody Altiza with a lock dip and a manual transmission, put a hydraulic handbrake in it, and go have some fun. Yeah. And that's really all you need to get into it. And then obviously develop over years if you want to go into more of a competition type level, and then start forming relationships with brand partners.
Absolutely. And what's the toughest lesson that cars have taught you over the years?
The toughest lesson? You don't get your money back. That's for sure. The amount of money you put into them, you'll never get back. So yeah.
Oh, thank you for giving us your time today.
No worries.
If people want to come check you out, you're at Manfield. Yeah,
Manfield next weekend, and then Bay Park, I think, is on like the 14th of May. So yeah, we've got like posters and stickers and stuff. So come into the pit, come say hi, and you'll get a poster and some stickers, and yeah.